I do it every night. I do it every night. I do it every night too. Are we talking about washing our dishes in the dishwasher? No. We're talking about having anal sex with men. Cascade. Okay. It's been a minute. Doing a lot of Let's Watches. I like them. But I understand some of you might just want the weirdness that comes pouring from my brain. I do want to share some COVID-19 stories. No, I didn't catch it. Nobody that I know or care about caught it that I'm aware of. But I'm talking about the fact that today it is Friday, October 29th, and at 5 p.m., New York City employees that work for the city, not like I work at Starbucks in the city. New York City employees have until 5 p.m. to get their first shot, or on Monday they will be placed on unpaid leave for 30 days. I don't remember if we've really gotten into this. I know I've briefly touched on how moronic these people are, but I don't know that we've had that conversation. Again, I assume that you think like I do. Otherwise, you're just rage quitting the podcast every time that COVID comes up. Being in my position at work, I have heard some interesting conspiracy theories. I would like to share with no real details as far as who it could be from, but these are the kinds of things that we are hearing. And because I interact with the staff representatives for agencies like the New York City Police Department and all those unions that you can see in the news, the FDNY, health and hospital employees, all that's what I deal with at work. So, I work for a union. And the union doesn't necessarily, we represent these members, but I don't have to deal with the members' individual complaints. I do have to deal with the staff that works in our union. Some of them are union members, some of them are not. But we, along with the city, have mandated that they need to get vaccinated by a certain point. We don't have the same deadlines as the city because we follow them, so we're a little behind. So right off the bat, bunch of people wanted nothing to do with the vaccine. Interestingly enough, and I think I might have touched on this when my wife and I got back from our vacation, most of the people that had an issue with getting vaccinated were like islanders or children of the Caribbean, if you know what I'm saying. So that was odd, but I couldn't find anything that gave a reason like, yeah, Caribbeans are afraid of shots. You didn't know that? I couldn't find anything on Google that gave a justification to it. They just don't like getting vaccinated. So that was fine for a little while. And a lot of the pushback that Mayor de Blasio, he's still the mayor for the time being, is getting on this whole mandate is the fact that he came out as a pussy. When he first gave his announcement, and I want to say it was June or July, might have been July, he came out with an announcement and announced that like stand-up comedy was coming back indoors, and he was there with Caroline's from Caroline's on Broadway, who is an evil woman. I'm sorry. I met her once. I love her establishment. She was very nice on television. The first time that I met her in person, she was berating people in a kitchen loud enough for you to hear in the showroom. And I remember, I was still new to the city, and I was like, oh my God, is that Caroline? And the friend that I was with was like, yeah, that's her. I begin to walk over to introduce myself, and then she just starts motherfucking the staff up and down, screaming. She didn't start at 99, she started at 100, and I stopped in the middle of my walking, did a weird Kramerish pivot to go back in the direction I came from, realized that would look weird, so I continued in the way that I was going, but I just walked past her like I was lost. Anyway, when he announced that they were going to give the option to have weekly testing eventually, or to be vaccinated, the vaccine had already been available for months, And I remember sitting there thinking, like, why the fuck are you giving these ignorant bastards more time not to do the right thing? Just mandate it, like, fuck off or join us. And now, the same people who didn't love the fact that they were going to have to be tested now are clinging on to that little fucking lifeboat off of the Titanic. And they're like, everybody can fit on this 60-person lifeboat, even though there's millions of us in the water. Get on. And they're saying that, like they're throwing that back at him. Well, right now we have an option. Why can't we just keep getting tested? I want to pause right there. I do not know how these people can be afraid of or just ignorantly hate the idea of getting vaccinated enough to want to be face raped. And I know it's not rape, but getting that PCR test, I've only done it twice, and I know I'm a bitch about it because I don't ever want to do it again. And I can't imagine preferring to do that 52 times a year at minimum. I mean, maybe if they get a vacation, they don't have to do it that week, but it's like, who the fuck wants to do that? Who's like, kick me in the dick as hard as you can. I don't want to wear a condom. But if you kick me in the dick, I hear that my testicles won't work for a week, so that's kind of like birth control. It's an awful alternative. But now, out of ignorance, they're just like, no, give us that, shove that thing into my brain. So, we've begun dealing with, out of like 60 people, I'm proud of our organization. We had, I want to say in the beginning, less than 10 people who were fighting it. Now we are down to one person who isn't trying to claim an exemption. And I'll give you, he doesn't have much of a story, but every week, because they do have to get PCR tested in our building, every week I have to chase this dude down for his test results. Every week our conversation starts the same. Hey man, you know you got to give that to me before you start working. Yet every week I got to call him, I got to email, and then I end up calling his boss and asking, hey, is he here? He is. Could you tell him to either call me or answer the email from me or from HR that's also me? Could you do that? And then he gets back to me right away, and it's like, after the third or fourth week, why can't you do it yourself? And I don't want to be that condescending prick who's like, I'll make you a reminder, but I'm him all day. So that's the one dude who we don't know where he stands yet. Although he's in an awkward position because the building that we are about to sell but still rent out 2 floors of, the building is also his employer. So he works for us and he works for them, both full-time, not part-time. So hypothetically, if he doesn't get vaccinated, we could put him on unpaid leave beginning Monday, but the building hasn't mandated the vaccination. So he could still work in the building in common areas like the front desk or something. He just can't come into our organization space, which is weird, but everybody else doesn't have that. Now I would like to get to exemptions. So I got a religious exemption and I got a medical exemption story. I'm going to leave the religious one because I find his funnier. The medical exemption one is just, okay, so this person actually has a good reason not to get vaccinated, right? And there are only 2 people in our organization who have good medical reasons they cannot get vaccinated. This particular woman, she had her nurse/doctor, because it's supposed to be your primary care physician. Nobody really said it can't be a nurse, but the fact that nurse was on her thing, I was like, why didn't you go to a doctor? Why isn't a doctor writing this? Anyway, she writes a letter to us that basically says, I don't think it's a good idea for her to get it at this point, are the last few words of her short letter. And it doesn't need to be long. It can be 2 sentences. Who gives a shit? But the fact that she put at this time, my super sleuth, means that perhaps there will be a time that she can get vaccinated. So my boss was like, well, since she said it like that, when does she think that she can get vaccinated? I go back to her. Hey, I'm going to need to know when she can. Now, in between, because my boss knows this employee's attitude. She is not the friendliest woman in the world. Even though our conversations generally, they start rough and they end like we're the best of friends. But then the next time they start just as rough as the last time. So this would be our first time meeting and speaking. Before I got a chance to speak to her nurse again, I asked her to come meet me in my office so that I could discuss with her one-on-one that basically, if it turns out she could get vaccinated in the future, we'll allow you to stay unvaccinated for now, but there's going to come a time when you're going to have to do it. And her response to me when I broke that down to her, and this is all just a hypothetical, if your nurse doctor doesn't get us what we need, the exact language, then yeah, you're going to have to make that choice. Nobody's going to... Now, she got mad the moment that came out of my mouth. And I think that I put that in a calm enough way. And like, look, I'm not rooting for you to get fired. I'm just saying she needs to give us something else. As soon as I put that out there, she met me with such hostility. She felt like I had just told her, you better take the vaccine. I don't give a fuck if it's bad for your health or not. And I just kept saying, like, she kept trying to make me say, you need to take the vaccine. And I was like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you, if I were in your shoes, I don't know what I would do. Because I was like, it appears it would be unwise for you to get vaccinated based on her medical stuff. And I won't put it out there, but it really does appear like she might keel over and die if she takes it. She's got some pre-existing issues that I am not jealous of. But her whole thing is like, well, I'm not going to risk my life. And I was like, I hear you. So in that pregnant pause is, so I guess you'll be quitting or letting us fire you, which would be interesting because I am all for people who don't want to get vaccinated. I'm glad they can't get unemployment. I'm glad that they are not technically being terminated. I think it's considered a voluntary, no, I think it's considered quitting, but I forget the exact language, which is sad. I should know that. Yes, I'm glad that everybody agrees, like, they don't deserve any of the benefits that we're giving people in other situations. You have chosen unsafely and against the best wishes of our society to ignore one of our newest policies. So you can go live in the woods and eat fucking squirrels or make a deal with Satan and jack him. Anyway, her doctor nurse calls in the middle of this conversation and she tells me over the phone in front of her on speakerphone, yeah, it would probably never be wise for her to get vaccinated. She should probably never get vaccinated. And I was like, okay, this was a month ago yesterday. And I was like, okay, so can you just send me something else? And bear in mind, the first email, it wasn't on letterhead or anything. It was an email from her, a secure one, a short couple of sentences, boom. And that would have worked. We weren't demanding letterhead or anything at that point. She told me I would have something in 24 to 48 hours. And I imagine her breath stunk when she said it. I wasn't in front of her in person, but when you tell lies like that and it actually takes you a month, I know your breath stinks. But I waited patiently. And I want to say in that month, I sent no less than 8 emails. I called her at least 5 or 6 times. And I contacted the employee at least 4 or 5 times, not to harass her, because I think that her thing is like, I hated any time that I had to speak with her because I don't like talking to people, but I also didn't like talking to her. So, you know, I wasn't looking forward to any of them. But here's the thing. I'm persistent. And I was persistent really on her behalf, because if I did nothing and let November 15th come, which is when she would have been put on unpaid leave, if not the 1st of November, if I had done nothing and let that come, and then we had put her on unpaid leave or something, somebody could eventually point to me and say, how come you didn't follow up on that? And personally, not professionally, personally, I don't think that's my responsibility. You want to keep your job? You stay on your nurse. I did my part. I touched base. She told me she would get back to me. I sent her, let's say I had only sent her 2 emails. At some point, you need to step in because it's not me who's going to be the one without a job. However, I was persistent because I wanted to avoid that, and it seemed like a really easy request to comply with. Didn't understand what took so long. And as a matter of fact, she came back to me a few days ago before she finally gave me this updated letter. Her nurse doctor comes back to me, and bear in mind, at this point, I've sent her all the 8 emails. I was done emailing her at this point. She comes back to me and says, my secretary said that she sent you the letter. Now, I checked the spam folder for our HR inbox, wasn't there. But why? After it's been a month, why would you send me that statement and not forward whatever your secretary told you that she sent? Or at least have it as an attachment in the email? That would be easy, like, she said she sent it, but here it is. Instead, you just say, she said she sent it. So now I have to respond to you so that you can respond to me again with what she actually sent. And that's exactly what happened. I responded. I checked all of our spam. I don't have it, but since I've received 2 emails from you, could you forward it to us, please? Which she eventually did. That woman's job was saved. The language was what we needed to see. But it was a very frustrating situation, and she had the right to claim that exemption. That should have been easy peasy. Now here's what is currently a religious exemption. I'm going to teach you a little something about EEOC law. And yes, it will be boring. No, this is actually fun. So, this particular employee is actually a consultant. He does a lot of consulting, but he is a consultant. He is on the payroll, but we don't really consider him staff. He used to come into our building to work with people physically, but lately he's been doing everything virtually because, you know, pandemic. So when it came down that there was going to be a vaccine mandate, his division, since they deal with people in person pretty much exclusively, there isn't really a whole lot of wiggle room there. Like, no accommodations will really be made. So, the first time that he sends me an email, he kind of wanted to, he was a little all over the place. He is a conspiracy theory. And I think the conspiracy theorists right now, you're really going to have to fight against your stupid. Because that shit is dumb all the time. But right now, people are dead serious about this one topic. And I know, me personally, when somebody begins to speak something that I can tell is a conspiracy theory, my eyes roll so hard, my dick hurts. I can't breathe. I tell them no, and then I hold my mouth and ass and move away from that person. So he begins by telling me, one, he doesn't feel comfortable with getting vaccinated. 2, he had it already. I think he caught it last year. And he begins to try to talk to me about natural immunity or immunization. I forget the correct term. But that's another interesting thing, because I have read enough and watched enough news, and not social media stuff. I'm talking like CNN, ABC, NBC, like news. And at this moment, the CDC can't say, yes, if you've had it, then natural immunity should be as effective or more effective than the vaccine. But they're also not saying it's a total crock of shit. But the fact that they can't say at this point that it's better than getting vaccinated, so get vaccinated, that's the end of discussion. Some kid, some little girl, let's say she's like enormous, just because I know how that would make me feel, wants to date my son someday, you know, at this point, I can't give you my blessing, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to turn into a swan, okay? Let's not label me a monster and leave on bad terms. Let's say for right now I'm a dick, but in 10 years I'm going to eat crow when you're beautiful. And who knows? 90 days from now, they might come out and say that natural immunity, I'm going to go with immunity. That natural immunity is just as good. And those people will have been vaccinated for nothing is what they'll say. But then the rest of us will be like, no, we're doing it to live safely, you fucking... Anyway. So he's telling me that he's been naturally immune. And then he goes, but my doctor can point out that I shouldn't take the... No, I'm sorry. He didn't say the doctor. He said, but I'm going to claim a medical exemption. And he didn't really give any good reason, although part of me thinks that he thought already having had COVID was his medical exemption. So I asked him to give me a call because that was going to be like a Bible of an email. He calls me. I tell him I need a letter from your primary care physician telling me exactly why you can't get vaccinated. He jumps in and he's like, but I already had it. What about? And I was like, hey man, I need a letter on letterhead from your primary care physician. Oh, all right. Well, does it have to be my primary care physician? Could it be my old family doctor? I trust him more. Sure. Let's see what your old family doctor has to say about why you can't get vaccinated. Because even though there are medical professionals, and I am doing quotation fingers right now, even though there are medical care professionals, quotation fingers, that would sign a letter for some person that's against their oath, bullshitting why they shouldn't get vaccinated, I am blissfully ignorant enough to believe that most of the people who take their Hippocratic oath? You know what I'm talking about. Most people that take that actually give a fuck about saving human lives and making people better. So I'm going to put good faith in people that are in a medical profession, which is why I'm so disappointed by all of these healthcare workers spouting their nonsense. Anyway, he reluctantly gets off the phone. I don't hear from him for like 2 weeks, but I check in just to be sure that he knows I'm still waiting on that letter. I wasn't going to like say it and just let it wait into the wind. Plus, there are deadlines approaching, and I wanted to make him aware. If you don't give me what I need by here's what's gonna happen. And my last email to him... No, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So he touches base with me, I want to say Monday of this week. Our deadline is Monday to have your first shot. Monday, November 1st. Assuming that Halloween is on the 31st. I never know what day Halloween is. Anyway, my wife said shame. No, I'll pass that shame off. So now he's changed his tune. Unfortunately. See, here's the issue. If you are one of these people who should really be thinking about how you can live underwater or plotting a trip to the Antarctic, if you're one of these people, here's what you need to understand. Stick to the first bullshit that comes out of your mouth. And I'll explain why. So he reaches out on Monday and he says, I can't get in touch with my family doctor. I don't even know if they're still practicing in New York City anymore. So then he's like, instead of going with the medical exemption, here's what I'd like to do. Because I was going to do this anyway before, are basically his words. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but that is kind of how he threw it out there. Like, I can't find this doctor. I was holding on to this fucking ace in my back pocket, so I guess I'll go ahead and just throw this out on the poker table because our ace is wild. Boom. Religious exemption. And his wording in the religious exemption, hold on, I'm gonna find it because it's too good. It says nothing, but it's great.
This is to inform you that I am invoking my right to my religious expression.
as protected by the U.S. Constitution. My sincerely held belief in my oneness with God does not allow me to receive into my holy body temple the COVID vaccine that your organization is requiring. I am seeking an accommodation in this workplace as required by federal law. I am available to answer any additional questions if needed. Wasn't that nice of them? But yes, that said nothing. He didn't state what his religion was. He just said that his oneness with God and his holy temple. Maybe he had a dream and God was like, don't put that shit in your body. That's how syphilis starts. Whatever reasoning he had made no sense. And so I told him in a very long email, and I wanted it to be an email and not a phone call. And I also sent that email with HRCC just so that the world would know when Monday comes, if I don't have a letter from his religious leader telling me what his religion is and why his religion can't, then you're on unpaid leave. But here's the thing, and I don't take pleasure in this because HR is about more than firing people. I think 85% of the job is about helping, and then maybe there's a 10% hiring, and then that leaves that little bit of leftovers for the terminating stuff and disciplinary actions. But it doesn't matter whether or not his religious leader sends me a letter or not. We were having a meeting with his boss yesterday to let her know basically what's getting ready to happen. Now, she understood because she's worked with him for years. She knows that he's a conspiracy theorist, but in her words, they generally leave it, like they keep it light. As soon as he begins to start spouting that dumbness, she changes the subject. She prefers that they talk about work, but she's like, he's great if we're talking about work. Otherwise, yes, I'm aware he's a big conspiracy theorist. And I told her what happened about him changing his exemption claim. And so she was like, okay, so should we wait until Monday to ask him if he has it, or should I touch base with him on Friday just to let him know this is what's going to happen? We were like, you should touch base on Friday. And she was like, okay, so should I touch base before you do or after? And I was like, honestly, it doesn't really matter when you touch base with him, because either way, I'm going to deny him. And she didn't understand how for a moment. According to EEOC law, you are allowed to investigate religious exemptions. The things that I asked for, I'm well within my legal rights to ask for. And I'm allowed to investigate and make a decision based on whether or not I believe that person. However, if you have already tried to make another exemption claim and you then change it, and this is almost to the law, to the letter of the law, if you change it seeking religious exemption, like you could claim religious, not get it, and then claim medical because your doctor will tell us, yeah, they can't get it. But for you to try to claim medical and then switch to religion, you should have done religion first, because legally I'm allowed to deny you just for that. Now, I don't believe that this man is religious at all. And I don't believe there's really any religion, maybe some new-founded cult, like a cult that started after March of 2020, has said, and don't get the COVID vaccine, and don't steal. Like, that's their Bible. But anybody else, you fucked yourself when you tried to play the game. I feel bad about it, but I hope that if the time comes, because people are put on 30 days of unpaid leave. Now, our organization is kinder than I think they should be. They are going to give people those 30 days to change their mind before you are fired. The city agencies, they get like 30 days of unpaid leave, you're fired, but then if you get the shots, you can come back within 6 months, which I think is, I don't know, it's like giving a hug to a criminal when they've just done something you told them not to do. You don't do that. Anyway, I will let you know what becomes of this man, because I'm sure we'll all be curious after Halloween. Get all your suits in order. My wife and I attempted to watch Dune the other night. The recording wasn't coming out how I like, but we continued to watch the movie, and it stinks. Maybe I'll put out the first, like, I think we got like 16 minutes before I was like, fuck it. I might slap that on the back end of this. If not, I'll put it on the next We Watch, but we'll have something for you very soon. Pieces.